Yo, it's me. It's the SEOTT, baby. And I'm here with my review for the 1991 film Backdraft, starring Kurt Russell, William Baldwin, Robert De Niro, and directed by Ron Howard. Welcome to another Throwback Thursday review, second one. Throwback Thursday, I'll be doing movies from the 90s. This was 1991, so we'll talk about it. The Blu-ray, and they say DVD on this thing, but the Blu-ray actually has a little special feature thing. When you start the film, there's an introduction by Ron Howard. And he basically tells you a little bit about how the process of doing the film was. And when they were setting this up to do this, they were trying to do the fires digitally with digital effects. But when they looked back at it, they saw that it was terrible and it wasn't working. So they actually had to use regular flames, and they learned how to the regular fire, actual fire, and learn how to contain it. And you watch this film and you're thinking, how the hell could they possibly contain all this fire that's going on in this film? But apparently they were able to. The story revolves around two brothers, Ryan and Steven, and when they're younger, back in 1971, Ryan goes with their father, who's also a firefighter. And they become firefighters too, but he goes with them on a run, and the father dies, leaving the kid alone. Now, the kid they use to play the young Brian looks so much like Kurt Russell that I was like, that's young Kurt Russell. But no, it's William Baldwin. Okay, sure, it's what people are supposed to like, whatever. Kurt Russell actually plays the father character too, with a mustache. But, so years later, William Baldwin's character Brian comes back to town. He once again becomes a firefighter, and he bribes someone with a box of scotch to go to a certain station because he doesn't want to be put with his brother, but his brother changes that anyway. And soon there's a mystery involving an arsonist, and he gets caught up in that. So let's talk about it. Now, when it comes to fire, I don't like fire. I'm deathly afraid of it. Have been all my life, just like heights. It's weird. The two reviews in a row are about fears that I have. Heights, fire. So what's next? Maybe I'll review a Barney movie. I don't know. I don't have a Barney movie. Elmo. I don't know. But, just fire in general. Ah! No. Look at that cover. I love that cover. That's cool. That is awesome. I love that. So anyway, what I was trying to say was, okay. First of all, it's weird when you hear, William Baldwin, Kurt Russell's character's name is Steven. There's Stephen Baldwin. William Baldwin is constantly yelling out, Steven! Steven! So you're expecting Stephen Baldwin to pop up. If I could do an edit, I would do an edit of William Baldwin yelling out, Steven! In Backdraft, and then cut to Stephen Baldwin as Barney Rubble. So it'd be like, Steven! Or whatever. Whatever. I don't know. I gotta give the praise to the acting in this. From William Baldwin, who I think is underrated. Man, I've never seen much of him. But in this film, I'm surprised his career didn't really go anywhere. Think of the three Baldwin films that are known. Baldwin brothers that are really known. William, Alec, Stephen. What do they do? You know that Stephen has some range. He could play a dude in Biodome, or he could play Barney Rubble in, Viva Rock Vegas. And Alec is Alec. But I would argue that the most talented out of all three of them is William Baldwin. I'm only basing it on this movie, but I'm guessing, you know, he's very, very good in this. He shows the emotion. He's very good at, you know, showing every kind of range there is in this film. From being happy, to being angry, to being sad, to being devastated, just, you know. Like I said, the story revolves around an arsonist, and Robert De Niro was brought in to investigate. And eventually, eventually there are problems between the two brothers, and that causes Brian to leave the fire department. And he talks to his girlfriend, or whatever she is, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, who gives him a job with the alderman. And the alderman redirects him to De Niro. And so he's working with De Niro, and they're trying to figure out who's causing these arsons. And it brings them back to a case that De Niro was involved in with Donald Sutherland's character, who's an arsonist. And I love this scene where De Niro goes in, there's a parole hearing, he just barges in, and he gets Donald Sutherland's character to confess that he still loves fire. And that stops the parole hearing. He's like, I'll see you in a year. Or whatever. She's like, yeah, you got... So the investigation, there's not really, the alderman is talking to De Niro, and he accidentally reveals the name of the third victim. Now, each victim is in a fire, and these fires are being caused by using a chemical combined with a power outlet, which causes a backdraft, which I don't know much about, but I got from this film is it's a fire that happens very quickly and is expunged very quickly. Like, it's and it's gone. That's what I get. And this actually causes problems. The fire department is called out for this high rise, and I like how they splice it with this, because the victim in this fire is actually Brian's best friend. So they splice in, they go back and forth between the firefighters in this fire and Brian doing it with Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, which is named Jennifer. So, and they don't really do it because they interrupted because they were on a fire truck when they were doing it. And then they get taken away to the fire, which I find very convenient, but we'll get there. Kurt Russell, or Steven, decides that he and Tim, who is Brian's best friend, are going to separate from the rest of them. Keeping in mind that earlier in the film, when Brian went off on his own to save someone he thought was in trouble, it turned out to be a mannequin, but he went off on his own, and Steven yelled and berated him for doing so. And now he's going to do the exact same thing. And it nearly cost Tim his life. They're in the building, and there's this guy. They call him the Axe. He basically sort of raised the brothers after their father died, and he's there, and he's yelling at Steven, hey, wait for backup. Don't do this. Don't go in there. Wait for backup. There's a reason for that. We'll get to that. It's backup. Wait for backup. And you know, Steven's like, it's okay. But then Tim opens the door, and it severely burns him. He's still alive, at least as far as we know. He's still alive by the end of the film. But we don't see him again. And then, of course, Brian goes off on Steven about it, blaming him. And then the investigation after this is this scene where we get De Niro talking to the alderman, and the alderman reveals the name of the third person, which has not been revealed to anyone else yet. And that's where De Niro believes the alderman is involved with this somehow. So he and Brian go to the alderman's house, and they find the arsonist. He's all masked up and covered so no one can see who he is, and they get in a scuffle, which leads to Brian burning him with the power outlet. And De Niro, and he gets knocked on. Brian gets knocked unconscious, and De Niro actually saves him when the thing goes off. He saves him, and he goes back. He saves the alderman, and they find out the connection is the alderman. So after this, Brian goes to talk with Donald Sutherland's character, and he's like, "What's the connection?" And he's like, "The power outlets." "No, you gotta think." And he says, "The chemical," which name I can't say because it's too big. And yes. And then he remembers something. So what I haven't explained yet, because this is my second time doing this review, because camera, is earlier in the film, Brian goes to see his brother at his house, but he's not there because he and his wife are having problems. And so he lives on their father's boat, and he's got chemicals and stuff there that were given to him by someone else. We'll get to that. His chemicals there on the boat where he lives. There is a scene where he sort of gets back together with his wife, and the next morning he's making breakfast with this kid, and the kid puts grape jelly in the scrambled eggs. Why would you do that? It's really weird scene, because the kid's like, "I want to do it." He cracks the egg, and he gets the freaking the eggshell in there, and he's like, "That's okay, it's part of my plan." And then he adds the jelly. I'm like, I wouldn't eat that if I were you. I'm gonna put jelly in my eggs. Jellied eggs. I don't know. But, so we get to the climax, and Brian confronts Steven because he thinks Steven did it, and Steven, Renee doesn't really confront him. He goes to talk to him and asks if he has anything to do with it, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and so he leaves. And then Brian goes back to the fire department for some reason. He's just kind of walk around there, sitting there, and he sees the axe, his name Axe, has the burn. It looks just like the power outlet. And he realizes that's who it is. And so when he goes to, the fire is caught out, he goes outside, and he asks if his brother's there, and they're like, he just pulled up, and he goes to tell him, and he's like, "It's Axe, isn't it?" He's like, "How did you know?" He's like, "Because you were looking at the chemicals on my boat. Axe was the one that gave them to me." So this is the guy that helped raise them after their father died. Here's my problem with it. It doesn't hold enough emotional weight with this. They just accept that it's him, and then Brian sees that you overheard everything, and then there's this big fight inside the fire, but there's not a big emotional weight. And he explains, "I had to do it. The alderman was doing this, was doing that. I had to do it. He dies. Then Kurt Russell dies. So Kurt Russell, at first I thought it was stupid, but it's actually a better death than I thought it was going to be. Kurt Russell was holding on him. Earlier in the film, Tim almost fell through. And they said, "You gotta let me go." He goes, "You go, we go." So here, he's holding Axe. And he goes, Axe is like, "You gotta let me go." And he goes, "You go, we go." And then they both fell. And Axe dies, but Steven is still alive. And he's laying on this bridge thing, and Brian goes up, save me, and he's got this wound. Steven does, a wound right here. And he's gonna die. And I gotta give props to Ron Howard for this, because how he directed this whole death thing, it's just kind of... So Brian calls the other firefighters over. They try to use the hose. The hose gets away from him, and Brian's like, "I gotta go get the hose." He jumps down, he grabs the hose. They get him out. They're in the ambulance, and the guy says, earlier though, what got me crying at first was Brian was in trouble, and Kurt goes, "He's my brother, god damn it!" I'm like, oh, because they were always at odds for the whole film. So he's finally just like accepting that's his brother. And, as he's dying, he says, "Don't tell him about Axe. Don't tell him, better die a hero's death, I guess. Don't tell him." But something is told because there's the funeral scene which made me cry, and then there's a scene afterwards which has him and De Niro walking in, and they throw evidence at the alderman and say, hey, it's all your fault. What was going on? Why you're shutting down the fire stations and everything in front of the press. So he's probably going to be in big trouble. And then the end of the film is actually kind of symbolic. Where, because, Brian hasn't officially gone back to being a firefighter yet. So he's kind of sitting there in the fire department like this. And an alarm goes off. And he tilts his head up. And you just sort of see him sitting there. And eventually you see him walk up. He's got on a suit. He's got on a hat. And he just kind of sits there. And the guy looks at him. Doesn't say anything. Just kind of looks at him. And then, the movie ends. He helps the guy adjust his jacket. Movie ends. There's a few things. Few things that kind of caught my eye. One is the smoking. Not against smoking movies by any means. But there are firefighters. And they're in buildings. They just put the fire out in. And they're in there smoking. Even Robert De Niro does it. And he's a fire inspector. And then he does the whole, it's going to cause a fire. I'm no fire expert, but I don't know how long it's been since the fire started. De Niro was probably the next day, but they're in there right after the fire was put out and they're smoking. Isn't that kind of dangerous? Couldn't, a little bit of a spark or something ignite something else again and the fire starts up again? Come on. And if I'm honest, the wife. So, like I said, there's the scene that Stephen and his wife aren't together. But Stephen shows up, he's drinking or whatever, and he's talking to his wife, and they have a cuddle in the bed. And the next morning, he's spending time with his son, which is good to do. And she's like, can I talk to you? And he's like, I don't want to get his hopes up. He wants another chance. This is what he wants. He wants to spend time with the son. He wants to be with her. He wants another chance. And she's just kicking him out. I don't like that. Because to me, he looks like he was trying to redeem himself. But in the film, he does redeem himself. But it just, there's a little, And then in the end, when they fold the thing, because firefighters and police officers so that they get that hero's funeral thing, fold up the thing and give it to her. I'm like, I don't think she deserves that. She wasn't treating him like her husband before all this happened. She kicked him out, basically. And I don't know, I really don't think she deserves it. I know she's a grieving widow, and they're technically still married, but I really don't. I don't know. And I know the sequel is supposed to be based with the son, Sean, and William Baldwin's supposed to come back. So I'm going to look at Walmart. I'll be going to Walmart to get do a supply run. I don't know if I already mentioned it in this one, because this is my second time recording, but I'm doing a supply run a little bit later today. And so, we'll see if I can find it. This was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. The directing by Ron Howard is great. Just the score and the overall shots he gets of Chicago. Chicago is one of my favorite cities in the United States. So, just the overall shots and stuff that he gets are great. And even the way he films the fire is great. I don't know if we talk about it this time, but there's this scene where Robert De Niro and William Baldwin are investigating one of the fires. And he squirts some lighter fluid and he throws a cigarette down. And he's talking about how it's alive. How it lives, it breathes, it eats. Fire is just like human beings. And to me, the way that scene is lit up and how it shows it going up is just excellent. Absolutely excellent. I gotta give this movie a 9 out of 10. It's a very good movie. I really enjoyed it. I know I've seen bits and pieces of it growing up, but no, I'm glad I sat and watched through the whole thing. It's a really good movie. I can't recommend it enough. If someone asks, what's a good Kurt Russell movie? You say Big Trouble in Little China, John Carpenter's The Thing, or Backdraft. Phenomenal. Just phenomenal. So what are your thoughts on Backdraft? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.